So welcome back to the Mind School channel. Hope you're doing well. And today we're going to talk about how to go on a social media detox. Mark Zuckerberg, you have a lot to answer for. So once again, I'm joined on the channel by Sarah Carter, who has, interestingly enough, just been on a social media detox. So I'm sure this will be a really enlightening conversation. So Sarah, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing all right, yeah. It's Monday here, it's roasting hot. We always seem to talk about the weather for some reason. It's a very British thing to do, isn't it?
It is. No one actually gives a shit, really, do they?
No one really cares at all, but it's conversation at the end of the day. So let's just start. Yeah, absolutely. So you've recently gone on a social media detox. So how long has this been going on for you, and why did you decide to do it?
Oh, okay. Well, first I must correct you on the word detox, because that would suggest I'm going to go back on, and I don't think I am. So it's a year. It's a year this month, actually. And I decided to come away from it all just because, oh gosh, there's lots of reasons, but I think the main one was just feeling completely exhausted and feeling like I was answerable to lots of people, and just felt like it was vying for my attention all the time. I felt like I wasn't living in the moment or being fully present with anything that I was doing, because everything was about how to make a comment about that or upload a picture, or I don't know. That was on the sort of personal side of things, but I was also running some of my business via Facebook, which, you know, is a great thing to do. It's free and it does connect you, and it's brilliant. But I don't know. I think it was just a question of the quality of what I was producing and the kind of conversation and interaction I was having with people. And I just had enough, basically. I just basically had enough. And so decided to come away from it.
It's one of these things, isn't it? I think, things like the internet are fabulous, creations, because they basically give us access to everything, but it also gives everything access to us. And I think the real big example of that is social media, because, you can end up, caught in a social media loop for hours and hours on end, answering messages from all kinds of different people that maybe aren't as important as other people in your life. And you end up actually not really having the kind of experiences you want to experience. You mentioned there about not being able to be in the moment. I don't know if I'm paraphrasing you here, but I totally get where you're coming from there. I remember quite a few years ago I was at a Radiohead concert in a place called Glasgow Green in Scotland, and I remember one of my friends had posted on social media while he was at the concert saying, "Having an amazing time right now at the Radiohead concert." And I remember thinking to myself, Are you really, or are you having a great time on social media here? And I think that's often one of the sort of negative byproducts, isn't it? That we end up living this kind of weird sort of meta disconnected life where we're not really fully immersed in, our day-to-day experience. Is that kind of what you're talking about there?
Yeah, I think so. And just sort of looking around and just seeing the amount of people on their phones all the time, or it becoming the norm and socially acceptable to be having a conversation but half looking at your phone, or I don't know, that sort of thing. And it's just, I think it kind of forces you to forward think. I think social media makes you, project into the future too much, or be reflecting on the past, because you're either scrolling and reading stuff about what people did days or weeks ago, and then feeling like you have to present your life. And I think, most people know, don't they? They say, oh, I kind of know that what I'm seeing on social media doesn't really reflect what's going on, and everyone's putting a positive spin on things. And that can be good sometimes, to look through stuff, especially if it's inspirational and motivational, and if it's your friends, hearing what they're up to. I mean, I know that one of the biggest ones is how it's connected people that you wouldn't usually be in conversation with. And that's great, but I do think it's a bit of a lazy excuse. I'm sorry, but I do, in the sense that I think the people that really matter and the things that really matter, you're going to have those kind of conversations and interactions anyway, or you should be. It shouldn't be reliant on messaging and what's being said via a post. So yeah, for me, it really pulls people out of their life. Which I think is also what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I think it can be very seductive as well, because I remember reading recently about something called the dopamine release cycle. And this is where, it's especially relevant to Facebook, but it's actually the structure of addiction. And basically, how it works in relation to like social media is you put like a post on Facebook and someone gives you a like, and that just gives you a little kind of, validation, and it gives you a boost of dopamine, and it makes you feel really good. But then very quickly that good feeling kind of vanishes, and you're left with this gulf that you need to fulfill. And of course, what do you do to try and fill that gulf? You go back on and you put another post on, and you try and get more validation from Facebook. And the people who created Facebook, and we're not just hitting on Facebook here, it's pretty much all social media, but it's like, it's not all about Mark Zuckerberg, but the people who created it, they know this, and they've actually structured this piece of software around about how we naturally create addictions as human beings. So I think for me, I don't really consume social media or Facebook from a personal point of view. I use it from business, but certainly that doesn't sit right with me. There's something just a little bit sinister about that. So I guess just to kind of move on to a slightly more positive note after talking about the sinister side of things, or sinister, easy for me to say, is what kinds of benefits have you experienced as a result of being off social media now for an entire year?
Yeah, the first one would be time. I just have so much more time, and I think that's actual time, as in I'm not wasting time and I'm using my time how I really want to be, but also how that just feels in my head. Because I think also what social media does is open up all these endless loops, and even WhatsApp messaging and all that sort of thing, anything with the phone really, if I'm really going to go down that route. But it's how many conversations do you have on the go, and how can you possibly keep up with them? And also in real time, it's not unusual, is it, to sort of get a message through or something on Facebook about something you were feeling or thinking about sort of days ago, and then it pulls you back into that. And so I just feel more centered, I feel more grounded, I feel a lot calmer, and actually a huge difference on my anxiety levels, just because not so much concerned with what people are saying and what they think quite so much, but in terms of my own expectation. It's certainly when I was running my business mainly through there, in terms of having to reply to things, and feeling constantly on. So it was really difficult for me to set boundaries in terms of time. That was when I'm working and when I'm not. And then I found that, work time, social media was blurring into personal time, social media, and it just got confusing, and I just felt inundated and overwhelmed. So time, I've definitely reclaimed that and how I want to use it. That's probably the main thing, and definitely a difference in anxiety levels, and just generally feeling calmer, and like physiologically as well. You know what you were saying about that dopamine hit, and I think there's a lot about how social media works that's about ramping up the adrenaline levels and keeping people in fight or flight, and it just welcomes in this world of huge comparison. And even if we're trying not to do that, even if we feel like we're quite healthy individuals who don't need to do that, it's going on subconsciously, whether we realize it or not. Just these sort of inadvertent messages that are actually making it into your subconscious mind, and how that can tick over and into play. So yeah, time and anxiety levels are much better. I just feel a lot better. I really do, and I don't miss it at all. I really thought I would, and it's what you were saying about addictions. It's even the language we use around social media, like coming off social media, or having, what the steps you take to come away from it and to pull yourself away. And I have to say, it took me quite a long time to decide to come away from it, because I was catastrophizing all these reasons why I should stay on it, like my business was going to fall apart, or I wouldn't hear about things, I wouldn't be included in things. It's all a load of bollocks, like it's fine. And then feeling like I should maybe do an announcement, and then you feel like really egotistical, like who's going to really care if you're coming off of Facebook? Nobody really. But you feel like, I should maybe let people know. And it's like, it's kind of this hierarchical position we put ourselves in. Social media sort of makes us feel like mini celebrities, or like we owe it to our audience. We become a product, we become this thing, and then there's our audience. I just want to be a person and have my friends. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think if anything happens to Mark Zuckerberg, I think maybe we should check out what Sarah was doing that weekend, if that's the case. But no, it does. It makes total sense. And I think even the languaging is interesting coming off social media. It suggests that social media is a natural place to be on, when actually it's really the reverse. We are conditioned to be on social media, but our natural way of being as a human being is not really to sit, glued to our phones or glued to tablets or glued to PCs or whatever. It's funny, there's a great book that both of us recommend called Deep Work by Cal Newport, and there's actually a review of this on the channel if you want to check that out. But one of the things he talks about in the book is a thing called shallow work. And shallow work is basically anything that you do that doesn't require a high level of focus and cognitive demand. So things like just casually surfing the internet, looking at your phone, or of course, on YouTube or whatever. But the main culprit, of course, is Facebook and social media. And what he says is, the more that you engage in shallow work, then the more that you actually train your brain to not concentrate. So you actually deplete your natural reserves to be able to really focus, immerse, and concentrate as a human being. And this, of course, happens by stealth as well. It's not like it happens when you just go on social media once or twice, but the whole thing just seems to build up. It happens in the background, and before you know it, you're kind of struggling to concentrate. It's a wee bit like a breeding ground for ADHD. So I don't know if that's another one of the benefits that you experience, Sarah, that all of a sudden, you manage to concentrate, you manage to focus a lot better.
Yeah, I think it's linked with that better use of time. So I would say that I'm just not so easily distracted. I think before, like if I was setting down to do some work, or even if I was actually just relaxing and watching a film, I was still had my phone as this companion beside me and just sort of checking things, or if a message flashed up, feeling like I had to answer it straight away. So, but yeah, definitely, I've been doing a lot of writing, which requires just being able to sort of turn any distraction off and just be able to really focus in. And that's something that was Cal Newport was talking about, that sort of deep work. When you were saying about the shallow work and all those sort of superficial conversations, all those superficial interactions, and all that the superficial ways in which we think we're being busy at work, like answering emails, but we never get down into the nitty gritty of something. And I definitely did notice, first off, that to be able to properly concentrate on something and not have that temptation to then just be checking social media, that kind of shocked me actually, because I didn't think I was addicted, but actually I think that's probably a real sure sign that I was. But that, has improved greatly, and my productivity, so the amount that I can now produce in quite a short space of time and really be in it and enjoy it. Absolutely there's been a difference.
So I think you've sold that very well, actually, Sarah. So I guess just to bring this video to a close, if there's any tips that you have for people who are thinking about quitting social media, what would those be? Can you do it cold turkey? Can you do it gradually? What sort of advice would you give?
I think it probably depends on your personality type. For me, I just had to quit straight away. I set a date and I stuck to it, and I just came off. And that's because even though I'd had advice from friends like, oh, maybe you could limit your days and your time and all those sorts of things, I just broke the rule all the time. So I did, set that date and just go for it. Having said that, you could do that. I think one of the things that some people do is they take the app off their phone just so it's a little bit harder to access it. So I think you need to find your own way. But if it's the main piece of advice is don't be afraid of it, and don't buy into this idea that you need it. You don't need social media. It just feels that way. And I think, well, personally, like I said, coming off it, I haven't looked back, I haven't missed it at all. There's been so many benefits, far more benefits than anything negative at all. So I would just go for it, but yeah, that's just me.
Make the decision and go for it. It's funny because we had a conversation, a couple of weeks ago, and you were saying that, one of the kind of things you said to me was, why not, not take your phone to beds? And Dad said to you, well, I need it for an alarm clock. And you quite rightly pointed out that they sell alarm clocks, You can go on Amazon and buy an alarm clock for like £5. They are actually pretty common devices. So I think simple things like that, isn't it? Just kind of wean yourself off at first, and gradually you'll start to experience that freedom of coming off social media actually gives you. And then from there, you maybe want to take that additional plunge and really go for it. So that is pretty much all from us for this video. Hope you enjoyed this discussion. Really, really important topic. Thanks once again to you, Sarah, for joining us in this chat. And of course, if you're new to the channel, if this is the first time you've stopped by, then if you could subscribe, that would be absolutely fantastic, and hit that notification bell just so that you can keep up to date with all future Mind School uploads. So that is all from us. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you later on. Bye.